G'day legends, welcome to the Thursday Sesh on Celtic Down Under. I'm your host Jared, and joining me all the way from New Zealand are Mike and Ian. How you going, Mike?
Not too bad. Good to hear you.
How you going, Ian?
Good, yeah, very good.
We've we replaced one Kiwi-based Celtic fan on tonight's pod, Willie, with two. So there we go. So Willie, unlucky mate, you could have been with all your brethren over there from across the Dutch. So yeah, good fun. But yeah, thanks for joining me tonight, boys. Really appreciate it. It's been a bit of an interesting time of the season, obviously, with result going the way it did on the weekend, and then one game a week. There's not as much to talk about. So what I thought we'd do on this pod is we would go off on a bit of a tangent, really, because I was listening. I was just talking off here. I was listening into a podcast with David Lowe on it, talking about when Fergus came in and the club and that, and it's kind of got my brain ticking over on this little topic. So what I was thinking, and I named the episode "Hey Big Spender" for this reason, is what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that each of us are a member of the board or the chairman at Celtic or an owner. And because Celtic has copious amounts of cash sitting in the bank at the moment, and we've got even more on the way due to Champions League money this year, what I want to dive in on is what would each of us be looking to spend some of that money on, in what areas. And I want to get you guys in the comments to jump in as well and give us your opinions, your thoughts. Let's make this as interactive as possible. So what I was thinking is the easiest way to look at it is if we just talk in general and then we'll get into individual things. I have I have 7 things on my list already, but I'd love to get Ian, you to just give me the top 2 that pop into your mind before, without going into any detail. What would you be looking to spend money on if you were the chairman at Celtic?
The top one I think would be obviously we always want to have sort of improvements on the pitch. So I think that evolution on the pitch, with some sort of Annie Engels level player or sort of that kind of value. I think more Brendan's a lot in terms of about quality and stuff. So that would be one. But the second one, and probably more importantly actually, is the infrastructure, the ground improvements. I think is a really big thing. I think we're lacking in future proofing. So yeah, touch upon that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Mike, what about you?
Yeah, it's similar. I think. I was surprised at how the years fly in, how old the new Celtic Park is. It's. I've been back a few times, and it's showing me signs of wear. I think it needs a wee bit of tidying up. I know might not be directly a Celtic thing, but I think we should be trying to do something in the area as well. Not just inside Celtic Park, not just the actual footprint. I was back a few years ago and I arranged to meet a guy coming up from Milton Keynes for a midweek game. And to be honest, without being too disrespectful, there's nowhere near Celtic Park that's really particularly great to go to within easy access to the stadium. And I'm not going full hospitality at Celtic Park, but I'd just like to see if there was more places where you can meet out, a wee bit away from the ground, where you could have a wee pint, a bite to eat, reasonable conditions. And I'm also a fan, so there's a couple of areas in the pitch we really need to sort out. We haven't sorted them out, some of them for years. We plugged some gaps, but I think there are a couple of areas we're really short on.
So I agree with 100% what both of you just said there, and I'll rattle off just the subheadings I put through on my list for us to work through, right? Because the first one for most fans is players, right? Always need to put some of that money back onto the pitch. The second thing I put was the stadium. And listening to that David Lowe podcast, the main stands are over 50 years old.
Yeah.
Then you've got the Lisbon Lions stands is over 30 years old. So realistically looking at it, the stadium needs some work done. But then I've listed off other things which ties into what you were just saying, Mike, about outside the stadium, because there was talk a few years ago about Celtic building a hotel out the front and a new ticket office and a club museum. So I put those things down as infrastructure. We've got Barrowfield improvements, which is currently happening. Lennoxtown improvements, so there's infrastructure. But then the other one I've listed here is improving Celtic TV for us international fans. So they're the main things that jump into my head straight away. You're not going to be able to fix all of them straight away because it's going to take a lot of money, right? But that's the breakdown of what I'm thinking. and we can dive into each of them in a little bit more detail and talk about them. So I think the best spot to start, since we're already on the stadium, is let's start there, and we'll talk about what we think needs to happen. So for me, as you said, Mike, outside the stadium, there's not much there. I've had friends come over from Australia, go to games, and they go, the worst part is you leave the city, you go for a long trip out to Parkhead, out to Paradise. You get out there, you've been in the boozer before the game, you've broken the seal, you're busting to go for a piss, and there's nowhere to go. There's no public toilets out there. There's no food and drink. There's no beverage, like place you can get a drink, get food. If it's pissing down rain, which happens quite a bit, there's nowhere undercover. So there's a lot of stuff you could do. We've done a lot of work on the Celtic way. So there's a lot that can be done there. So I want to get your opinions. You guys have been to, it's not hard to have been to more games than me at the stadium. Like I'm still a Celtic Park virgin over here. I've been following the club my whole life, but haven't been there. But yeah, there's plenty that can be done. So Ian, I'll throw to you. What's your thoughts? First thing that you do at the stadium?
Well, we've talked about this before in Axel, actually, and I think it's you look to Germany, for example, who do it really well, like the fan zones. They have that, and obviously that's not on the way to the stadium. That's going to sort of take investment from Glasgow City Council as well, you'd think as well, or if independent businesses. I think if there was more like the hotel and there was the museum and it became a destination, sort of even when there's not a game on. Celtic Park was utilised during the week. And I think more businesses would invest in pubs and restaurants and bars around about. Where it's probably not sort of viable with one game every 2 weeks, or maybe two games every 2 weeks. At the start of the season. So I think fan zones should be really looked at. If it was me, I'd be going out, sending an envoy out to the likes of Germany, go to speak to clubs and see what they do. Look at other clubs around about. I mean, look at, you go and watch the A-League as well. I don't know what it's like in Australia, Jared, but the Auckland FC team here, they do it right. They're really, the infrastructure, they're really, it's a great day, great experience. It's really family orientated. They've got all the food trucks and things like that. Everything's laid on, and it's pretty slick and it's nice, and it's a good experience. Whereas you go to British football, it's always a bit raggedy around the edges, all that tribalism and all that kind of stuff, which is part of it, which is why we love it. But I think yeah, certainly an investment in a sort of a fan zone, and that would mean some kind of permanent infrastructure. You'd have stages and things like that, and you'd have stalls and things set up. So then, obviously, the individual businesses can just go in, independent businesses can sort of go in and take over those for the day, the game day, or whatever. But I think that would be a start.
Well, on that with the A-League, like I know over here for Melbourne Victory's games, what they have is right next to the stadium. They have what they call the Victory Village, and there's like jumping. It's not a jumping castle; it's like an inflatable target, and you get to put the ball down, kick it, and try and get a bullseye, and you win a prize. They've got things where kids can get face paint done in the club's colours, hot food trucks, all that sort of stuff. So it make a day of it for the families going to games. Like you could do something like that outside the stadium. I'm sure there's room around near there, but yeah, it's definitely that. So we've got some comments here. So Heavy Vibes was saying clubs missing out by not having fan zones, food bars, drink bars, etc. 100%.
I think that the club would need to liaise a lot with local businesses and maybe in the city council. Number one for me, I'm well older than you guys. When I go to a football game, I go to the match. I get in there before the kick-off, watch the game, final whistle, I go home. Half-time entertainment, pre-match entertainment, buys, bother, don't worry me, I'm there to watch football. But I think if we had places near the ground where I could go over a pint and a pie or a meal before the match, I'd like that so I can still go to the game. But you've got to get there. Now, we'll need to do something about this. I normally get the train, and it's a fair old hike, especially when I'm getting older, from Belgrove up. And at Kilmarnock, I mean, there's not enough trains for people. The club should be doing something that provides transport to the games for people. I mean, whether it's have a word with ScotRail and get extra get 6 carriages on instead of 3, or where it's put on buses from the city centre that are included in your match ticket or something. Getting to the stadium and getting away from it is, I mean, I never leave a game early, but sometimes I'm sprinting to catch the train to wherever, back into town. I think we need to do some of that. And once they're there, I think we could have more decent. I mean, I hate it, continental style. It doesn't need to be a big raucous public bar. Just little bars where people can sit and have a light snack and a beer, and go to the match. And I think they'd maybe need to do that because you would need to be careful, because there are pubs in the area. I mean, they're not particularly great pubs, but you could maybe work out let other businesses. I mean, Celtic would want to make money, but it might, in the early stages, let other businesses tender for them, and say, well, we'll put up I don't know how you do it, but a temporary stall type thing that it's a wee bar, and you just sit there, tapas and a couple of beers and go to the match.
They have that at the NRL in Sydney. So, say if you're in Sydney, you go into the NRL Grand Final, for instance, or even during the season, and you're going out to the Olympic Stadium, so where the 2000 Olympics were held. There's a train station there. There's buses that run from, if you want to get the, what is it? You got the train there, you got the buses, and there's also a water ferry that takes you in, and you can get the shuttle bus from there up to the stadium. All of that, if you show your match ticket, it's free.
Yeah.
So that gets you into where you're going. Then there's a lot of hotels, there's bars, there's pubs, whatever around. You can do that. But on Grand Final day, they pop up these big tents, put seats and tables out, fence off areas. You can go in and you can do all that. Now, the reason I bring this up, it's for me, I'm more like you, Mike. I'll go to the game. I'm not there for that the majority of the time, but I look at it and go, in this current environment, people's funds are tight because of cost of living pretty much everywhere. Everyone's watching their dollars and cents. But we have to look at it and go, we are competing, Celtic Football Club is competing for people's entertainment spend. Are they going to go to the movies? Are they going to are they going to get Netflix? Are they going to go out for drinks with their mates? What are they going to do? So going to the football is a comparison for me. If you've got the option of, you can go nightclubbing with your friends if you're 18, 19, 20, whatever age, and you want to go and get pissed off your head and go nightclubbing, are you going to spend your money on that? Or are you going to spend it, getting a train, walking for a while in the rain, getting out to a stadium, sitting there watching football, come back? There's limited time and money people have to spend on that. So that's something that Celtic need to look at it from that perspective.
One thing I would say, though, in Celtic's case, which is maybe a bit different from what happens in A-League, etc., is, Celtic have got a season ticket base that is more or less, it's a waiting list. So, Celtic probably view attracting people to their games in a different light. Because, let's put it this way, there's nothing there at the moment. It doesn't stop you getting 50,000 people turning up. If they would, this is looking at one way or the other, saying, well, if we put, what's putting Melbourne, Auckland, you can have bouncy castles, because there's a big area behind the goals at Auckland where the kids can play. You're not going to get that at a football ground in Britain. There's not enough. I don't think you could justify that, but I think they could do it better. But I don't think we could go down the way it is done down here. Because people predominantly are going to a football match to watch a football match. If they're bringing kids, the kids want to go to the game. There's not a play area. You don't, because you would need to. And you can do it. You can do it on Auckland because there's an area for kids to play in the ground. You wouldn't get in Scotland, I don't think. Certainly not at Celtic Park.
Outside, there's plenty of room outside Celtic Park, though, and I think there's enough room.
Yeah, but who? I don't know what Celtic's ownership extends to. I don't know how far Celtic are allowed to put. Where the Celtic Way is, you could develop stuff there, but you'd probably need. But even then, it wouldn't take long for that to fill up. So I just see one of the couple of comments come in here. One guy a good point about people. We get a lot of people coming over from Ireland.
Yeah, I'll bring the comment up for you here. So Heavy Vibes is saying the hotel would be nice. The travel from Ireland has put me off the last few years, plus the rush to get back to the bus so you don't miss the boat home. It's a real hassle.
Yeah. You've got to face it. The East End of Glasgow is not a great salute, apart from Celtic Park. Once you move a couple of streets away, I mean, when I was back a few years ago, I went to the Shakhtar Donetsk game with my son, and we were staying with my family in Edinburgh that night, and we were getting off back. We had to stand outside the Oak Bar on Springfield Road, and after the crowds had cleared, you're standing there saying, "I hope to God this guy's not long coming to pick us up," because it's it's not.
Yeah.
You wouldn't go for. Nobody would go to the East End of Glasgow other than to go to Celtic Park without them not being nasty.
But then you look at the Emirates Centre. That there's a lot of infrastructure investment for the Commonwealth Games with the big Emirates Centre. And you think, we could build upon that as well. That you think that the sort of more businesses would have invested around about there, but it kind of stalled a little bit. So I think Celtic need to work. I don't think we're a particularly progressive. The board aren't progressive. We're a pretty well run club, but I think we're just doing it on kind of just enough. They're not. I use Germany as an example. I think the Germans do it really, really well. I've worked in Germany, worked in lots of different places in Europe, and you go to various different cities outside the UK, and you see the infrastructure, and you see how well public transport runs and operates compared to the UK, just generally speaking. And I think Glasgow City Council is just like, I suppose, any other city council in the UK. But I don't think Celtic we could be sort of the benchmark really of how to do it in Scotland. We've got the capital behind us, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can go and look to other places that are doing it and it working well. And I'm thinking, you've got these stalls that are they're permanent, and then various different businesses can just rent them, for match days and things like that. But
I'll give you what you're saying there, Ian. I'll give you an example. Perfect example of that in Melbourne is at the tennis centre. So where the Australian Open is held. In each of the stand, like the stands and that, they have built-in food and beverage huts. They have this sort of thing, right? During the year, when the tennis isn't on, so say June, July, when I'm going in to watch like the Melbourne Storm play in the rugby league and it's 12 degrees outside, it's bucketing rain, whatever. What they do with these food outlets is they take all the machinery and the cooking stuff out of them, but they open them up so that if it's raining, you can duck in there to get out of the rain, or they open up the toilet blocks in these sort of things to give people in the sporting precinct places to get out of the rain, go to the toilet. There's a few bars and restaurants that are open on the walk down. So if you go from the city, you go down to the tennis centre, you can get a feed there. You can go on to another stadium, and then you've got these different places. And that's something that I look at with Celtic from everything I've heard and looking at Google Maps and all this stuff is like the stadium, but the talk a few years back was about the hotel and a new ticket office. Now, if you put a new ticket office, you're saying outside on the Celtic Way, if there's room out there, that's where the talk was the hotel would go. That's where the new ticket office would go, and a big Celtic superstore would be built, right? If the club was to put that money in, what they're thinking is the hotel means if I was coming over from Australia and I was going to a Celtic game, I'd stay at the hotel. I'd love to put money back into the club. And it also means I don't have to worry mucking around with, because I don't know the land, I don't know which streets don't go up if you're wearing green and white, which pubs don't go into. If I'm at that hotel, there'd be a bar, there'd be a pub there. I'd be able to get a feed pre-game. So that's diversifying income streams for the club. At the same time, the new ticket office would make it easier. A bigger Celtic superstore would make it easier to get merch and get in there, and we'd be able to expand it because we sell a lot of merch as a club. We're one of the top clubs for Adidas. That's why we're getting specialised kits next year for our third kit. So you look at it that way. It's all about the club aren't forward thinking enough to go, all right, how can we diversify our revenue streams? Get that hotel built, get a club museum in the hotel as well or next to it. If I came over from Australia, I'd stay at the hotel. I'd do a stadium tour. I'd go to the club museum. I'd go to the superstore. There you go. That's 4 touch points for the club where they can get money from me, and I would not care at all. But the club's thinking, okay, we get 60,000 to a game on the weekend. That's great. That's pretty much the way I look at it.
Well, Mike's right. I think it's a captive audience already. There's no incentive to try and win people's favour because they've already got this waiting list as well. But that goes to show as well how much money they're wasting every season that they don't have those extra seats they could be utilising. You know, you've got to invest at some point. And it just seems to say that you keep kicking it down the road. It means that it's the next regime that are going to be left holding the baby, and it's going to be a bigger undertaking to extend the stadium and all that kind of stuff further down the line. The more it sort of decays.
If they want to keep doing it, all they have to do is look at Old Trafford and the waterfall. That's the path they're on.
But you look at
You miss 1 year of like, oh, let's not paint the stairs 1 year. The next year, let's not look after the concourses and fix that up. Next year, let's not fix the toilets. You miss that year-on-year investment in your stadium. Suddenly, things fall apart, and you get 10 years down the line, you look at it going, oh, great, now we're going to have to spend 6-7 million to fix everything we need to in one hit rather than 500,000 one season, 1 million the next, whatever. So we've got the money to do it. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I think Celtic could do. I mean, they should be looking out. I mean, I'd say bring back Fergus McCann. He'd maybe have a few ideas. You know, think a wee bit out the square. I mean, they'll probably say, oh, well, it's not public transport's nothing to do with us. Well, we've got 60,000 people going there every week. Make it, you know, you've got an incentive to make it work for them, make it better for them. You know, you've got people who want to come in. I spoke to the stadium, the museum thing. I mean, that could get people there on non-match days. You know, you want to try and do that. That's been. I did speak to Matt Corr, who I know at Celtic Park, and he told me when I was about a couple of years ago that because of the Barrafield development issue, that the museum had been shelved. You know, as far as he was aware, that was on the back burner. But that's the kind of thing that would get people there. I know that I haven't done it myself, but I've been at the Hampden Museum, which is good, and I haven't done it yet. But they do a tour of that area. You know, where you meet at the original Hampden Park. You then go to Cathkin, then to what is now Hampden Park. And I do know there was talk of something similar, you know, meet at St Mary's Hall or St Mary's, go through the area up to Celtic Park. You know, so the tour just wasn't, it's not that far, but I mean, you'd walk up, you would see a bit of Celtic's original history in that area. So, I mean, things like that could be done. I mean, I think, and I've said this before, the Celtic story is so much more than football. There's a social aspect to it that they should be cashing in on as well. I mean, you attract people from, you don't need to be necessarily a football fan to appreciate the social impact Celtic have made on Scottish football, or in Scotland. Yeah.
100%.
Sorry to jump in there. I was going to say as well, regarding Barrafield, I wonder what the sense is behind it, because obviously we've got Lennoxtown. It seemed to be a bit of a strange move to sort of accelerate upgrading Lennoxtown. I know it's right. It's upgrading Barrafield. Sorry, you know, that money could be spent. I think that would have been something for further down the line, and we should have sort of maybe extend the stadium. Look at doing that first.
I can understand why they're doing Barrafield though, because the youth academy, how poor has it been the last few years with players coming through? It's going to take a good decade to get the higher quality players, but you need the better training facilities for them. You're going to have that year round at Barrafield, right? The women's team need their own training venue, and they'll be able to play some games there instead of having to rent out wherever they're playing. Okay, so that means the club's going to save a bit of money on rent here and moving things around, and it gives them a home base. So Barrafield is more for the women's football and for the youth academy. Great, happy with that. That's what we should be doing. That's infrastructure. Lennoxtown needs to be updated because Lennoxtown only has, a 3/4 size football pitch indoors, and it snows. So it's hard to train there. So realistically, you're going to have the full-size indoor stadium at Barrafield that even the men's team can use if they need to. Then you can, fix up Lennoxtown and go from there. So I get that. I have no problem with them doing that. That's what we should be doing. But at the same time, yes, Ian, we should be looking at the stadium. We should be looking at hotels. We should be looking at multiple things at the same time. You don't have to be like, okay, say for work, if I'm in like freight and international trade, right? I'm not just working on one shipment at a time. I'd be looking at, okay, let's bring in these solar panels. Great, they're on their way, but what do I need to mount them to? Okay, let's bring that stuff in. Let's bring this stuff in. And you get everything arriving at the same time. We can work on it. We can work on multiple things at once. It's common sense.
But it's the budget, isn't it? And I think obviously the biggest undertaking is going to be the money for the stadium, and but it's got to be done at some point. And I think I totally agree. But the Barrowfield investment is a good one. But my point is, could that not have waited for another couple of years? We've waited this long. Because the more time that we haven't got a bigger stadium with a waiting list of people who want to fill these seats, it's money lost. So if they can secure that, then that's secure in the future.
Let's be honest, Ian. The waiting list. How many people are on it? They saying 10,000, 12,000, something like that, right?
Yeah.
How much of that is a crock of shit, though? Because what I can tell you is people who were on that waiting list, there was individual tickets available this season. Apparently, the club got down to like 7,000 mark before they signed off everyone, because people on that list were wanting 4 tickets, 3 tickets, 5 for their whole families. So you may have a list of 10,000, but not all of them are looking for a seat right now that's going to come available. You're going to have a drop off every year of maybe 1-2% because people whose situations change, people pass away, so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
So the options are you either improve that main stand, which we need to do, but to do that, that's all well and good. We need to improve it, but we're going to need to move the people who are sitting in that stand elsewhere in the stadium anyway before we can do that work. So to do that, you've got this waiting list, but at the same time, you're probably not going to be able to action that if you need to move the people who are currently in the main stand elsewhere in the stadium for a period of 3 years or something to rebuild that main stand properly and then bring them back, because you do it in stages. If you look at the way Liverpool did their main stand. So we need to do that main stand, but I think the waiting list it's a great argument to have that we've got that waiting list. But if we suddenly snapped our fingers overnight, a stadium was built and it was a full 80,000 seat as one big joint piece around the whole stadium, we wouldn't sell out all those tickets straight away.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't think the stadium improvement necessarily means a huge uplift in capacity. I'm not sure if this was said, but the main stand, is there restrictions on, is part of it listed? I'm not sure about that, but I don't think you'd be able to. I think you'd be improving it rather than necessarily extending its capacity. That's the way I understood it. I used to, before I left to come to New Zealand, we used to go to the main stand, but I've only been back, and the times I've been back in recent years, I've only been back once. I was back at the Atletico Madrid game, but people there say it hasn't really changed since well before the 80s. I mean, they did a nice new structure on the outside, but you're still getting the same basic toilets and seating and stuff like that. So I'd imagine in that area, because you get directors' boxes and visitors, you probably get how do I put it? It's like the business class in a plane. You don't get as many people in to the seats there as you'd get, in the economy seats up in the North Stand. So I don't think we'll necessarily increase our ground capacity. It will just be an improvement in the conditions of the ground. That's the way I would see it.
So with the main stand, what I've heard is the reason we can't host a European final is because we don't have bus entrance into the stadium, exit from the stadium. The reason we couldn't build that is because under the ground there's like a lot of, can't remember the exact terms. It's like a honeycomb. There's holes in that they just filled with concrete.
Yeah, there's shafts. There's old mine shafts there.
Mines, that's it. Yeah, I couldn't remember what led to that. So there's mine shafts that they just filled with concrete. So building up the main stand, okay, we could do that, but we'd have to extend it back out onto the Celtic Way and then over the top of the current building to do that, because it's heritage listed and it's got certain things. So there's the way to do that. You could probably put an extra 10,000 seats into that stand. That's about it. Before the engineers that wouldn't allow it. So to still bring the stadium up to 70,000, which is a great capacity for us. But then once you built that up, then you've got the rest of the main stand. If the top new tier of 10,000 more seats is brand new toilets, everything else is fine. Then you've got to do everything else in the main stand to bring them up to the same standard. Once that's done, then you're going to want to do the rest of the stadium. So it's going to take time.
Yeah, but I mean, all you're doing is somebody's made a good point. You can't just keep kicking the can down the road. You've got to get. I mean, it's not going to change. It's not suddenly going to be. It's not going to be easier to do it next year than it will be to do it this year. So why not?
Yeah.
Right.
But why don't the board sort of grasp it as seeing it as their legacy? The improvements. Ferguson's got it as his legacy that he built the new stadium, and he saved us and all that kind of stuff. And that's he did things properly for the right reasons. I think this board, they're self-serving. That's why they kind of just they don't bring in outsiders. That's kind of it's. I've said this before a lot. It's just an echo chamber, and they kind of sort of just pat each other on the back and that's it really. So when an echo chamber exists, you're not getting that influence from outside. So they don't. Why would they listen to other people's ideas? And I think what the kind of attitude they have is, well, what do you know about infrastructure in football? What do you know about transfers? I can't remember who said it, but it was like some old manager says, "I didn't realise to be a jockey at first you had to be a horse." It's a silly notion, isn't it? If you eat in a restaurant, you don't have to be a chef to appreciate good food. So we can be a fan and also appreciate that this is what I want, what I see as a positive move direction for my football club.
On that perfect point is like Dom Mackay. You bring someone in from outside. He's one of the best up and coming sports administrators in Scotland. He did great at Scottish rugby. And what happens? You bring him in and he lasts, 3 months? And he's out the door?
He asked too many questions, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. He upset the apple cart too much.
Yeah, it's ambitious.
Yeah, so definitely the stadium needs work. Hotel, club museum, ticket office would be great. I'm going to go through some comments. Smell the Glove's got a good one here. I fancy a brand new heated driveway. How about you give it a heated Celtic way? Because apparently it's like an ice ring at certain times during the year and people fall over.
Yeah, Peter Lawwell can use the guy he used for his driveway.
Yeah, exactly. Heavy Vibes was saying, yep, fix up the ground. Smell the Glove was saying, I find it embarrassing putting away fans except for the Huns behind the big pillar for a restricted view. Longing for that south stand to be redeveloped.
Yeah, the away fans thing, I find that a bit awkward as well. I mean, I was at a game a few years ago with friends. I mean, Wraith Rovers fans, I know. I mean, I've got friends who are lot non-Celtic supporting friends, and I mean, I couldn't sit. Celtic Wraith Rovers. What's the potential hazard in a game like that? But I had to go and sit in another bit again. But I could see where they were sitting, and it's a terrible view. I mean, I think it's quite embarrassing for a club like Celtic that they do that, and it doesn't stand us in good stead if we're complaining about going to other grounds, So I'd like to see. I don't know the technology enough, but I'm sure we could do something better in the ground than the area they get stuck into. But that might happen if we can develop the south stand more to the main stand.
Yeah, it's got to be done. It's got to be done. The place is looking tired, but that would be the time to sort of incorporate a hotel in the museum. Obviously it would cost money, but you could do a share issue. You could raise the money somehow, and again
you'd surely do that in partnership with people. I mean, sure. You could go to I don't know. I mean, I'm not an entrepreneur, but you could surely go to a hotel group or people that are involved in the hotel group at the moment and say, look, you come in at Celtic Park, do it there, and you can get a partial naming rights or something like that. You can, instead of the Waldorf, you could call it the Walfrid or something like that. I mean, I'm sure they. I don't expect Peter Law and his guys to come out and get hammers and shovels and dig. I mean, you'd engage people who are in that line of business to come into partnership with you, and if they get a share of it, well, fair enough.
Perfect example. That's like you get something like the Sheridan Group or the Hilton Group or something like that. Who can come in, they run it for you, they operate it for you, and then you own 55, 60%. They own the other, and it's named instead of it like Sheridan Celtic Park or Sheridan Walfrid or whatever you want to name, the club wants to name it. Because like I know with work, whenever I travel, tend to always stay at like in a core hotel, which is a group of them, but they've all got different names. Like on the Gold Coast here in Australia, there's like 6 hotels with the same brand, you don't know which one's which until you get to their names. So it can be done.
Mm.
And that Radisson Red Hotel that went up down the quayside a few years ago, that went up. It seemed like it went up in months, you know.
Right.
It didn't take long at all, but that's actually a destination. It's got a rooftop bar. It's actually a destination as well as a hotel, you know, and I think that would lend itself to other people saying, well, hang on, there's a bit of a scene happening now. There's a hotel down there. We've got things that can happen. You know, there's foot traffic 7 days a week rather than just, you know, twice a week or twice every 2 weeks. So therefore, then people will be more inclined to invest. And like you said, then you'd have the better pubs and eateries that would line the way to Celtic Park that people are craving.
Yep. We had that in Melbourne where, like, one of my old jobs, we were doing the Ritz-Carlton. They built a hotel in Melbourne. Never had one before here, so they built it. So we were bringing in all the glass and the attachments and all that. So it took a year and a half, 2 years to build it all, and it's good as gold, one of the best hotels in Melbourne here. So that's not a paid plug, YouTube, by the way, so don't try and ping me on that. But it's one of them where you could build it pretty quickly. I'll just go back to some comments. Smell the gloves. Like, I went to a Chicago Cubs baseball game, loads of bars, etc., around the Wrigley Field ground, a great atmosphere. Smell the gloves. Also saying the board having the likes of the Kellys and Whites defender Brian Wilson on it shows they aren't progressive. And then Heavy Vibes is saying no, club should buy St Mary's Church. John Hutchison is saying, just wanted to tell you that I'm off to do the Celtic tour right now. Had some really bad news over the last couple of days, so I'm treating my wee mum. Enjoy it, John. Enjoy the tour. Let us know how it is. I'd love to get an update on someone who's actually doing it now. And yeah, John's saying he's been on the waiting list for 4 seasons. So that's where I think the waiting list, yeah, we may have a lot on it, but it's not going to be that great.
Just if I can just jump at a wee tangent from there, another suggestion I've got to make is a method whereby people who don't go to the games can get their season ticket used. There's a lot of empty seats at Celtic Park.
Yeah.
And I think
exchange,
and at the same time, you get people wanting to go to games. You know what I mean? So I'm sure they could, in this day and age of technology, I'm sure somebody could work out a method of doing that. You know, and the club could. I'm not sure it's true, but I've heard Hearts do a system whereby a guy buys that ticket, the club who've already got the seat paid for, they still get a few pounds extra for it, and some of that money goes to the guy who owned the season ticket. There's a wee credit towards his next season ticket. Some of those it could be done.
Yeah, that's what Liverpool's doing. Like, they brought one in where, okay, you get 24 home games a season with League Cup games and FA Cup games and all that sort of stuff, right? And European games. So the seat has to be used, has to have someone used in the past for 18 of those games for you to keep your ticket valid, right? So you need to use it 75% of the time. They don't want empty seats. The other 6 that you don't use, if you don't want to use it, you can sell it. And in those 6 games, if you say your ticket cost you for each seat works out at like 25 quid a game, you can sell it for that 25 quid. Liverpool will keep 5 of it. And then the other 20 goes back to you to come off your season book the next year.
Yeah, I think that's something like that. Because I mean, to be honest, I mean, a lot of people have got season. When I was growing up, when I was going to football, I only knew one person that had a season ticket, my Uncle Peter. Nobody had season tickets. You just went to the game, paid your money. And a lot of people probably got season books at the time emotionally, in the sense of, I can't afford to buy shares, or I can't buy a share, I'll get a season book. Because I know guys whose wives will get season books. They still got the odd game, but they're not. I mean, they're not going to go on a wet Saturday afternoon to see Celtic play Falkirk, you know. But there's enough demand of people who are coming over every so often to want to use it, so they may as well use it, you know. So that definitely should be done.
The amount of times I get contacted from people over here saying, hey, do you know anyone in Scotland who can help me find a ticket? I'll probably get that at least 3 or 4 of them a month.
Well, I get it right. I get it all the time. I mean, I was at a funeral on Saturday, and the guy came up to me and says, "Oh, my son's going over to from Ireland to live in Edinburgh for a while, and he's working over there temporarily." He says, can you get tickets for the games. And I'm saying, well, even I struggle to get tickets. I mean, the days of getting them are very, very difficult now. But as I said, you watch the game in the other weekend. There's still gaps and still plenty of empty seats. People just don't turn up.
Yeah, especially the midweek like league games. Like it's hard for the people. I'm going to say it. The season book holders in Ireland, like you got to work the next day. You got to work during that day. How hard is it to get over to Glasgow for a game to then fly back that night or get on the ferry overnight and go straight to work again? So those are the sort of games where I look at and go, if I'm going over there, I'm going to want to try and grab a ticket to one of them because those are the games where I'll probably have more chance of getting a ticket to go there because some season ticket I won't go and I'll be able to somehow wrangle a ticket. But I just want to jump back to a comment here. So, Smell the Glove was saying about the new stand on top of the old stand doesn't get rid of the pillars. Heavy Vibes was saying this board isn't going to spend money unless they have to. But this is the comment I wanted to bring up. Smell the Glove was David Lowe keeps saying do another share issue. Last one was in 2005, so a new generation available to buy them. Absolutely, I'm over in Australia. I'd buy shares if they become available. Just so I can say I own a piece of my football club. Like other people doing that, and there you go, Smell the Glove saying he was lucky to get some in the first batch and they framed it on the wall. Like, I would love to be able to own a piece of Celtic and do my part to build a stand, go towards the stand, getting built, all this stuff done. It's more than enough of us who can do it. But what I'll do now is I'll change it off the stadium stuff. So we're talking about spending some of that money on players. Now, obviously, everyone knows what positions we need to strengthen. So, Ian, I'll throw to you. What positions do we need to strengthen, in your opinion, for next season?
Well, left back is partially taken care of. I don't think we'll get. I don't want to get the full complement of games if we do all right in Europe again from Kieran Tierney. So we're going to need backup for him. I still don't think that the left centre half is a position that's completely filled. I think Aaron Trusty, the jury's still out on him. So I think there's a strengthening potentially there. Carter Vickers, I don't know whether he's got a sort of long-term niggling injury. So I think that the two central half positions are going to need some kind of support. Carmack's not getting any younger, so I mean, there needs to be some kind of succession planning with him. I think he plays less games, so we can sort of keep him involved, and so we can elongate that career of his. But I'd like to see another top class striker coming in. Brendan was talking about saying it might be easy to get a top class winger now that Dyson's going through the middle. But he was the one who said we had 1 million wingers at the club the last time. We just seem to keep buying wingers. We've got a couple of good ones at the moment, but I can see Nicholas Kuhn maybe going out the door with some of the comments that Brendan's made recently. He's got that kind of petted lip all the time, hasn't he? He doesn't really seem to. He's a happy boy, even when he scores. So his, he's the drop off on him has been remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So hopefully he starts playing a few more games and gets his value back up. And we can maybe punt him and get a replacement for him. But I don't think there's massive surgery required. I think it's just some quality players. I think we've proven it with Arnie Engels. You don't necessarily have to go and spend 11 million, but if there's a player for say 15 million that you're going to get, you're going to get a good few years out of them, and then double it or maybe even triple it. I'd like to see that kind of investment where we start sort of looking at down those avenues.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, much the same. I think what I'd like to see is that we're a bit more looking ahead. I mean, rather than wait till Calmac suddenly get old, we need to get somebody in from. You'd like to think we've got someone in the wings, as it were, waiting for that. So there's a couple of. I mean, I think the left back one. I said this season about Carter Vickers. I didn't think he'd be playing every game because even last season he showed that he had some issues. So I thought we needed, and I thought we'd get away with it in Scotland because I could envisage, my envisage was Carter Vickers would play maybe most, but not certainly all league games and all your European games and all your Rangers games. And I think Tierney's going to be a bit like that for me next year. I can't see him playing 60 games a season. So we need a reasonable quality backup for him. That's just a fact. I mean, because we won't have him every single game. Again, a striker. I mean, I think he does developed a wee bit, but he's still developing. I still think I mean, at the end of the day, Kyogo's still better than Ida to me. Kyogo at his best is still better than Ida at his best. So I'd like a good quality one. And although Dijsselmeer's done well, I think he does give you options when he's playing in the wing as well. So I mean, I prefer a more direct striker or centre man, to become in there. The centre back position, we've had that for years. We've never. I mean, the only thing I do think is that we paid by our standards quite a bit to get Trusty. I mean, he was about 7 million or something. So I mean, and that's maybe what you get for 7 million. I mean, the game at Dens Park, I thought he looked. Simon Murray, caused him a lot of problems.
Yeah.
The thing is, we spent 7 million on Julian, and he used to get towed up on the plastic against by Lyndon Dykes.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens. So do you need to jump up? Do we need to spend 11 million to get a better centre back than Trusty? And would we spend that? We had a lot of centre backs last year. I mean, look at Nawrocki and Lager. No, we had 6 of them at one time. None of them have really settled in. I mean, Trusty's probably done very well in Europe games, I must admit. He's turned up. But Scales has played quite well in games. But they've both had their aberrations as well,
Do you want me to go down a tangent for you on our centre-backs? I've got my notes here, right? I can give you a rundown on centre-backs who have played for us in the last 2 seasons.
Oh, we've only got an hour left, haven't we?
So, Carter Vickers, Scales, Trusty, Nawrocki, Lagerbelka, Dane Murray, Stephen Welsh, Yuki Kobayashi.
Oh, God.
Owada played centre-back for us for 2 games. And I'm not including a certain person who left because his missus left in Starfelt. Is at the very start of the Brendan era. Like, he left it then. So he was in the squad to start with but didn't actually play. So there's 10 centre-backs.
I have heard, by the way, Jason Denier's a free agent.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what I've got for my list was we need 1 left back. We need 2 centre backs depending upon what we do, because at the moment it's Carter Vickers and is it Scales? Is it Trusty? Is it Nawrocki? So we need to have. I've worked it out. I want to have 2 left backs, 5 centre backs, 2 right backs, 3 goalkeepers, 5 attackers is what we currently have. This is going into next year's squad, right? So I want 1 left back to come in to back up Tierney, 2 centre backs. So that's, do we keep Trusty and Carter Vickers, and then have Scales, and then look to replace Lagerbelka and Nawrocki with better quality? Do we try and do that? Because those 2 players there, that was about £8.5 million for those 2. Then you've got Trusty was 6 million, Carter Vickers was 6 million. So do all the maths there. You're looking at north of 20 million for those 5 centre backs. So we need to upgrade there. Right back, I'm good with Johnson. I think he just needs a break this off-season. He's played non-stop almost for 2 years solid now. Didn't have a break because of the Copa America. Midfield, I've got it down as we need 2 centre mids. So someone to help Kilmarnock out, whether that's a defensive mid or another centre mid. We need someone to potentially replace Hatade if he moves on. I want us to bring in an actual attacking midfielder, so proper number 10. I think we need one of them because that'll give Brendan more versatility. So to play that Rogic role for him. I want a left winger coming in, which looks like we're talking to that Balashwicker again from Royal Antwerp. And then we need another striker, someone to challenge Maida to start. So even the left winger, as long as they can play across the whole front, that gives us versatility there. But if Kun was to move on, then you could always push Jota across to that position, Maida on the left, and then putting the other striker in the middle. I've heard some interesting stuff that apparently a certain former player of ours who is not really getting the game and hasn't done much in England, his agent's been up the road having early discussions in the last 24, 48 hours. If that happens, I will have to rip out the old French Eddie top again
All right, that wouldn't be a bad shout. Because he needs to get back, come back home and get that renaissance started.
And then while we're at it, we need a centre back. Let's talk to Virgil. Like, he's a free agent too. Let's bring back all the old boys. Bring in Virgil. Bring in Tierney. Bring in Franchetti. Who else is out there we could bring in? Denier.
Yeah, Boyata.
Bring them all up.
Yeah. Where's Effie Ambrose?
Doing backflips in the 5th tier.
Yeah,
so there's plenty to go there. The last thing is Celtic TV. It's pish, needs upgrading. I've said my piece numerous times. I think they need to do more filler during the week, sort of thing. So we're a club
It used to be a lot
history.
better. Like 10 years ago, it was much better. It's been a massive decline.
I happily paid for it 10 years ago, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Now I look at it and go, why would I want to pay for it when all I get is half hour before the game and 15 minutes after the game? That's it. When the old days, you'd get the youth games on there. You'd get on this day, you get a game from years ago, whether it was a league game, a Champions League game, whatever. You'd get interviews with former players. Now you got the women's team you can put in there, the B team you can put on there. There's heaps more you could put on there and make it justifiable. So you're not just paying to just watch a game. I would do that, but it's absolute rubbish compared to what it used to be.
Apparently, they pay the guys who work for Celtic TV peanuts as well. So it's not a very attractive.
I didn't think they actually get paid. I didn't think they actually got paid, to be honest.
Probably work experience kids.
Yeah. How do they? How does it compare with other club TV channels? I mean, it's the only one I watch. I mean, the only other I see some club TV ones sometimes. If like remember you could pay per view for a couple of games for last season. I remember watching Ross County on their TV, and I watched a St Mirren Celtic game on St Mirren TV. But I mean, are we different from the others? I mean, I seem to remember you used to get documentaries and and stuff like that a bit more. Is that just considered not worth doing anymore because you get so much on YouTube? I don't know the background to that, but I mean,
on our pay TV over here, Mike, we used to have Man United TV, Liverpool TV, Chelsea TV, and there was one other. I can't remember who it was. So we had them as normal channels. And you go on there, and Man United TV was unreal. You could jump on 1 minute, and there's a sit-down interview with Dennis Irwin. Then they show like highlights of his career. Then they show a random youth team game. Then after that, it's an interview with Roy Keane, and then they talk about his thing, and they do all that, and they just keep it going 24 hours a day. Liverpool was the same. Chelsea was even better. Like, they actually had deep dives where they go and talk to the player now, and it was on location with them. So they go to that player's home and they'd show off their trophies and their mementos and their shirt collections and stuff like that. And I feel dirty saying Chelsea were good because they're a bunch of absolute pillocks, right? Absolute ferals, that club. But what they gave us Chelsea TV was unreal. So you compare those three, I know they've got TV money behind them, but you compare that to what we're getting now and what we used to get on Celtic TV, and we've gone backwards big time.
Yeah, I was watching a St Mirren game earlier this season, and fair enough, there's a power cut in the area, and Celtic TV went down, as did a lot of other stuff. But interestingly enough, I fiddled around, and I could get St Mirren TV covering the game. They were back on screen before Celtic TV came back up. So I don't know if they've got amateurs behind the scenes there running everything for them. I mean, again, living in New Zealand, of course, the games are always at an awkward time. So if you have access to it during the day when you could be watching other Celtic history-related stuff, that'd be a good point. But as I said, I haven't tuned in for a long time, other than just to watch a game, because I don't think there's anything else that'd be worth watching.
Yeah, so even that would be like, for us to be like, okay, game's on at 2 a.m, middle of the night. So rather than get up at 2 a.m, if I'm like, haven't been feeling well, whatever, I would love it where you could just go, all right, I'll sleep, I'll leave my phone on Do Not Disturb, I'll get up, watch the game first up on Celtic TV, watch the full match coverage, everything, and then be like, sweet, now I can check my group chats, whatever, and see what's going on. Like, if you had that on-demand sort of thing as part of that TV package, it's great. And this is going to sound weird. The other one that I left out, One of my friends is a Millwall fan. Millwall TV is probably 5 or 10 times better than what Celtic TV is, and it's half the price.
Mhm.
And Ian just dropped out. There we go. So what we'll do, Mike, is
Nice background, it is.
Ian's having technical difficulties. So I'm just going to ask you a real simple question. When would you like Celtic to win the league? Like, do you have any preference for this? Like, for me, ideally, we would have won last weekend, and then we win this weekend against Killy. Guaranteed, we've won the league at home. Would that
Yeah,
be your preference?
yeah. I mean, to be honest, I am always cautious. I hate people saying do this, do that, but I was gutted on Sunday, not just because of the performance. I mean, but I, after after the Rangers game to Parkhead, I said to him, "Right, I'm really annoyed now because we can't really win the league before the split." And he said, "Well, yeah, we could if Rangers get beat." And I thought, "Oh, well, Rangers are probably going a wee run now. They won't." So when I woke up on Sunday morning, discovered Rangers had lost to Hibs. First up as well, beat St Johnstone, beat Kilmarnock. That's the League One. Won it at Celtic Park, and before the split. Now I'm just at the case of just take each game at a come. If we win the league at anywhere we win it, I'm happy. I mean, I'm just looking at one game at a time. We have to beat Kilmarnock Saturday, and then see what it takes us, because we'll need to wait another week or so to the fixtures, the post-split fixtures to come out. But I just say we're only going to get 2 home games after the split, and I presume one of them will be the last game.
Yep.
So
I'll give you a rough rundown of what you can expect, right? So currently there's still a way we can win it before the split. We win on Saturday and then Aberdeen win on Sunday against Rangers.
yeah,
We can win it. But then we don't win it on the pitch. We won it with the results going against us, right? So some people are like, no, I want us to win when it actually happens in front of us, right? So we can still win it before the split in that way. The other thing is, if it goes after the split, what we're looking at is we still have Hibs to come to us, and we still have Dundee, I think it is. I think we've still got to go to Dundee United or something like that. Anyway, the last game of the season will be at home. Of the 5 games, you'd think they'd pick the middle one for us to go play at Ibrox. So that puts that there. So then you're left with 1 home, 2 away. So the one leading up after the derby, there'd be a midweek game. So that'd be away, and then we'd be at home. So that's your last 3. So the first 2, it'll either be 1 at home, 3 straight away games, 1 at home, or you'll be away, home, derby, away, home. So it'll work out that way. So
I think
realistically,
I don't see they would avoid trying to give a club 3 away or 3 homes. So I think after the split it'll be away,
away,
home,
home,
away, home.
away, home. That's how I think it'll be as well. So, yeah.
So I mean, to be honest, if we win on Saturday and Aberdeen win on Sunday, I'd be delighted. We've won the league. That's it. And okay, we didn't see it happen in front of our eyes, but we've still won the league, and that will do me. That would take that like a shot. I've got no interest in extending it if we can win it sooner. I remember a few years ago we lost at Easter Road, and there was a bit of jubilation in the sense that meant we could win it the following week, and we beat Rangers 5-0, and we won it that day. But no, get it done. That's the way I look at it. So I'll be very happy. We've got to win on Saturday. After what happened on Sunday, we've got to win on Saturday. Win that, and hopefully Aberdeen does win on Sunday. If they don't, we just go to the next game, whatever it is, and try and win it there.
The thing is, we haven't won clinched the title at a game at home since 2018. So it's been a while between drinks. I don't care when we clinch it. People say, oh, I want it to happen in front of us so we can see it happening. Even if we win on Saturday and then Aberdeen win on Sunday, guess what? I've still seen Celtic win the league because I watched every other game this season. So, yeah, what's your thoughts, Ian?
I just can't believe the drop off, really. I think if Rangers had not been so calamitous, really. We could have lost the league this year. We motored for a good portion of the league, but the amount of wins we've had, we've not been playing well. I know that's the old adage. It's the sign of a good team is when you play badly but still win. But I disagree. I think we've had lots of near misses. Look at that Aberdeen game. We ended up winning 3-0 at home some weeks back. They could have been 2-0 up. So there's been that's been a bit of a thread for the season, really. So it's not really as big a surprise as I first would have thought, really, with the sort of hiccuping and stumbling over the line. But same as you guys, I just want to get it done as quickly as possible, get it over the line, and then what we've got to look forward to is just the one qualifier for the Champions League, whereas the English teams got 5 teams going straight in, haven't they?
Yeah, something like that.
Actually, there's a wee point. Actually, just came up in a discussion with my son the other day, but that in a sense, Celtic and Rangers have got the same task to get into the Champions League. We've got to win 2 league games, and we've got to win a qualifier. Rangers have got to win a quarter-final, a semi-final, and a final of the Europa League. They've got three opposition teams to play to get them straight into the Champions League. And the question then came up was, if somebody said to you, next season, some Faustian satanic plot without necessarily sort of the devil, if somebody said to you, here's what I'll give you, Celtic will win the Europa League next year, but they won't win the Scottish League. Would you take it?
I would.
Yeah, I would too. I would take it. So, and that's the thing. And all this talk about our performances in recent weeks, when we beat Aberdeen 5-1, I was getting some people snarling at me because I still was disappointed, because I view the Scottish League as a qualifier for the Champions League. I'm not disrespecting it. Winning the title is, from Celtic's point of view, is the means of qualifying for next year's Champions League or Europe. That's Europe is more important. So we've got players. We've got players who are capable of playing in Europe, not capable of just winning the Scottish League. That's the way I looked at it. So when I'm looking at players, I'm not worried. They've got to be able to beat Ross County at Dingwall, but more importantly, I need to know they can turn up if we're going to challenge in Europe. So we need to be looking at it that way. We've got to win this league and start working on next season right away. Got to.
We've got to already be working on next season. Our recruitment team's got to be out there already. We've got to be figuring out, okay, is Rodgers getting a contract extension? What are we looking at? What's our formations going to be? We need to have more than one plan, all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I'll get some comments. So Smell the Glove is saying, win the league as soon as. Personally, I don't care if it's Sunday if Aberdeen beat them. Heavy Vibes are saying, hope the sheep win it for us. McLaughlin's saying, we could probably lose every game and still be crowned champions. That's the scary part.
Yeah. Well, I've already been looking at the theory where we need win 1 game and draw 2 because the goal difference is so good. But I mean, you've got to say that our performances have not been good for a while. So it'll be a tough game on Saturday. I mean, Kilmarnock will defend better than St Johnstone did. I can tell you that. That'll be a very strange
game. They're fighting for their life.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough game.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, I just want to win that, and then you're just the 1 win away.
One thing sorry, Jared. One thing I wanted to say though, we're talking about recruitment, and Celtic Down Under's very own Liam Carrigan said an accent on Tuesday about mooted like a 3-5-2 system, a change of formation from Brendan, a la Martin O'Neill's. And I said that in the group chat, the Axon group chat. I don't know if you remember last year, the year before.
You got all sorts of pelters for it.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to change your system, and I think that would So if we're talking about would that change the personnel it would bring to the club? Because I think when Ida and Kyogo played up front together, after when we made some changes with substitutions, I thought they played well, and I think they cause havoc. You should be in Scotland. Why are we only playing one up top?
Do you want to know where that came from, Ian? On our Monday pod with Liam was on here. Me and Liam and Shane were on here and we're chatting about it. And we're like, we need to have multiple formations. So what we were saying is we should go to a 3-5-2 because Okay, imagine Eder getting in there, battering people, having Maeda playing off him. So we said that because the thing is, Eder, I think, because he didn't do a full preseason last off season, I still think there's a player there, but at the moment he's more of a super sub for us. So, like, if you've got 3-5-2, but then the wing backs can drop in for defence, that'll cover you for in Europe against the Huns. You load up the middle of the park, so it makes it a bit tougher, right? So that works for us. Or Brendan can go back to his 4-2-3-1 formation with one in front and an actual 10. That's why I said recruit an actual number 10, and we've got our wingers. So we have multiple variations. At the moment, it's just if the 4-3-3 ain't working, let's just sub players or switch the wingers. That's about it. So that's where that convo come from. So it's good to see Liam take that, run with it on Axom on Tuesday, and then something you cop pelters for in the Axom chat about 18 months ago. Liam's getting all sorts of love for something we spoke about. So it's good. I'm going to give him shit about that now.
The only problem you've got with that is Brendan Rodgers isn't involved in any of these discussions, so I just can't see it happening. I think he's pretty rigid in his ways of doing it.
He changed his formation in Europe, when we didn't think he would. And it got me thinking, in Scotland, is it an ego thing? Is it like, we're, why would I change my system when it's in Scottish football? But look, listen, I trust Brendan Rodgers, implicitly. I think he's a world-class manager. I know there's a debate saying, is he a world-class manager? I think he is. I think he could manage Real Madrid. I think he could manage Barcelona, and I think he'd do really well. So that's pardon?
Do you remember, Ian, the last time we played a 3-5-2 where we had Eddie up front with Lee Griffiths?
Yeah.
And those guys were just banging in. It was raining goals week after week. We were putting 5 and 6 in for a few weeks. And then injuries happened and things changed. Like, think back to that and then put it with the technical ability of our current players. Oh, this could get ugly.
Absolutely.
Well, I'd be starting. I mean, I'd give a go on Saturday. I mean, with I'd crack at that with Ida and Maeda as your two up front. That would be because he'd had a good game at Rugby Park last year, remember? And you might need him against, because the game will be physical. So I'd have Ida, and instead of Ida being isolated or Maeda being isolated, give that a go. I mean, it won't happen though. I can tell you it won't happen. So
So we'll talk about that. So we've got the game against Killy on Saturday at Celtic Park. I'll just skim over it because we're going a little long here. So what's your general thoughts heading into the game? What changes do you think we should make? Then we'll jump in off the back of that to our starting lineup score predictions. So Ian, what are your thoughts?
Well, I said this on Axon the other night. The changes I would make was I'd stick Jota on the right. I'd put Maeda on the left, and I'd play Ida from the start. I think, and Liam said this on the pod. He thinks it's one of those like he needs an important goal. He's been scoring goals like sort of the third one in a rout or whatever. He's not been getting the first goal, so I think he needs a run in the team. I agree with you. I think there's a real good player in Adam Ida, so I'd like to see him rather than coming on as an impact sub. Let him start some games, and I think he'll start to get on the score sheet. Frank McAvenny said on one of the podcasts on Friday, and this is Axom actually. He was taught when he was a kid at St Mirren. He was in midfield, and he got Jimmy Bone taught him how to jump into players and hold the ball up and stuff like that, and it didn't come naturally to him. I think he needs to do the same thing. He's got all the attributes, but I think he needs to sort of practice playing with his back to goal a bit more, getting that ball to stick. I think he'll have a lot more sort of better results, sort of bringing the link up play and bringing other players in rather than because he likes to play with the ball in front of him, doesn't he? Yeah. So I think there's more to come from Ida, and I think you're right as well. Once he gets a full pre-season as a Celtic player, I think we'll see much better from him.
I made a joke about Ida when we signed him that he is Moussa Dembele from Wish. Like he's the similar sort of build and the way he likes to play and move and make runs and the ball through. So he's that sort, and that's not me being disrespectful. Moussa Dembele is just such a special player and was for us. That's why I said it. But the thing with Ida is he does need to learn to hold it up. So if you play him in a 2, it gives him someone running off him that they can't put 2 centre backs on him to cover it because who's going to cover the other guy making a run? So that's part of it. But the other thing with Ida is I think he just needs someone to just smack him around a bit before he gets out there. Get him out there playing angry. Like he just looks too chilled. For me,
Yeah.
can you imagine a John Hartson or a Chris Sutton going out there, getting kicked and belted around the way he did, and not getting up, grabbing someone by the throat and just trying to absolutely throttle someone? Ida just needs to get on the angry pills.
Considering he comes from Cork, these Cork men are usually wild boys.
That's where all my family from the island's from. So yeah, it says it all.
Yeah, I think that for weeks I've been saying, said this especially before the Rangers game, we can be better. One day we're going to click. I've given up on that now because we've just gone too many games, and I think now at the stage where some guys that Kuhn's a good player, and he should be doing better, but you can only give him so many goes. After Sunday, it wasn't just a one-off. He's been gradually not getting properly involved in games for a while now. I think I'd certainly wouldn't start him on Saturday. I think he needs time out. He takes the hard lines. I think we just can't keep risking him. The only problem I've got there is that I've got reservations about Yang. I still don't think he's going to be any better than we're seeing. James Forrest is probably good for coming on, but I wouldn't be starting him. So I think Ian's one of starting Maida and Jota wide with Ida through the middle is probably as good as we're going to get on for the starting position on Saturday.
Yeah, on top of that as well, like not just Ida, but it's guys like Engels. Like love the player. I think he's going to be great for us, but he's in the same boat with Ida, and then he needs a full preseason in our system. But the thing I look at and go, we need guys, if they're off form, they can't just keep getting a game and know that the squad's too small. No one's here to take my jersey. Like if you go back to Rodgers' first stint, he had Forrest and Paddy Roberts going at it week after week, chopping and changing because that was the best Jamesy Forrest ever played for us. So realistically, we need those guys. We need competition in the squad. So we can't be playing people who are clearly out of form. And to be honest with you, our best and most informed centre-back is another little thing here for us over the last month, 2 months, is Naroski. He needs to start on the weekend. I don't care if it's for Carter Vickers out or if it's for Trusty going back out, but Naroski must be starting.
Do we know if Scales is fit yet, or is he back in training? Scales, is he available?
Don't know.
I think he is. I think it's his facial injury, isn't it? I think I heard that he's not. He's not far away anyway. If he's not.
Yeah. So Dermot McCulloch is saying AJ, CCV, Schlupp, Hatate, and Kuhn need some time on the bench.
Schlupp hasn't given me much confidence, to be honest, in recent weeks.
Yeah.
I'd start Taylor.
Yeah, realistically, if we'll go through with our starting lineups, then for me, starting lineup will be Sinisalo in goals, Taylor. I'm going to keep CCV in, so I'm going to go with Naroski and CCV, and I'm going to start Ralston, get a bit of aggro out there. Middle of the park, I'm going to go with McGregor, Bernardo, and Luke. We'll put McCowan out there. Up front, Ida through the middle, Maida on the left, Jota on the right. But if he's fit and healthy, it wouldn't surprise me if we see the Yang Gang getting a start. He's got a bit of that bastard about him too. So yeah, that's what I'd be going. What are you thinking, Ian?
Not too dissimilar. So Sinisalo in goal. I'd go Taylor back at left back. I'd go Trusty and Carter Vickers. AJ right back. Kilmarnock as a holding midfielder, and I'd have Engels and I would have Bernardo as the two starting midfielders. And I've already said the front line would be Maida on the left, Ida in the middle, and Jota on the right.
Mike, what are you thinking?
Yeah, pretty similar to Ian there. I'm not sure about Navrosky. I mean, we've seen him in a couple of games. Has he really been tested? I don't know. Give him another run. I don't think I'd fancy having both Bernardo and McCown starting. So to me, it's McGregor, Bernardo, and one of Engels or Hatate in the other role there, and the front three. I say Rolson's an interesting one. He always gives you 100%. And if we're not playing Kuhn, maybe the only thing is that if you're it hasn't worked recently, but Johnson and Kuhn kind of were a combination. If you start Rolston with somebody else, that side's got it's not got its usual regular there. So maybe you'd be better keeping Johnson alive on that side if you're not playing. If Kuhn's not going to be up there, But the other thing is, I think we've got to be able to accept that it's not an 11-man game anymore, and it's important that we've got players who are going to come on because they'll be needed during the game.
So I'm just going to go and justify something. Why I said I'd bring Taylor in is because Schlupp hasn't been that great, and it's against Taylor's old club where we signed him from, so he always seems to give that little bit extra against Killy. Naroski,
I think it's the type of game Taylor will be all right, and I don't think I've been disappointed in Schlupp's last. He looked a bit sluggish the other day there.
Naroski has been probably our best centre back in terms of when a ball comes in, just putting his head where most people don't and clearing it away. So that's why we need that, because Carter Vickers and Trusty look shaky under high balls, and you know what Kelly will be looking to do. Hit us on the counter. If they can't score, win a free kick and whip something in. So that's why I'm putting him in. And the other reason Ralston goes in is because this team's coached by that wee rat-faced bastard Derek McInnes, and we all know of his allegiances. So he'll be out there probably telling them, "Oh, if you can't win the game, win the fight." Kick lumps out of us. So get the Bricky out there because he's just as likely to give him a kick and back. There you go. Get some psychos in the team. I miss the Martin O'Neill era when you had like Lenny and your Hartsons and Bobo and all that sort of stuff, just getting absolutely mental out there. I miss it.
Yeah, Mialby and what's his name? I forgot the other guy's name. Mialby and Verhaeren.
Yeah.
Didn't take many prisoners,
There we go. Talking about what I was just saying about McInnes's team, 10 red cards this season.
Yeah, they've had a few. Yeah.
So what's your score prediction, Ian?
Oh, it could be anything, couldn't it? I'll take a drab 1-0. I don't really care as long as we win.
Mike, what are you thinking?
Well, every week I keep saying one day we're going to click and it'll happen. Maybe it will. I doubt it. I can't. I think Kilmarnock will score. I can see almost how they'll score. So I'd be, if we can get a 2-1 out of it, I'd be happy. But I think it'll be it'll be one of those games where we won't score early. I don't think so. It'll be a day for a night for fingernails biting. I think it'll be tense. I think the way the game will pan out.
Yeah.
Just one wee thing, just a couple things in there. I was saw a statistic the other day. The goal we conceded on Sunday at Perth. When was the last time we've scored a goal like that? And the other one was, when was the last time we actually scored direct from a free kick? I remember it was David Turnbull, and I've just seen a thing come through today. Apparently the last time Celtic scored a direct free kick was 4 seasons ago.
Wow.
Yep.
Now, for example, the game at Paisley, when they get that free kick at the edge of the box, you think they're going to score here, and they did. We get a free kick on Sunday in the exact same position almost, and Jota put it out over the bar. So I haven't verified that, but I can remember seeing David Turnbull getting a ball. I think he hit it underneath the wall up at Dingwall. That's my memory. I could be wrong, but somebody said today that was 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's about that.
And we saw on Sunday how the defence did not handle, which admittedly was a great ball in. It was a great cross in, but
Schlupp was AWOL.
Yeah, I mean, well, he didn't. He'd done to contribute, because I was playing football. You also say to the kids when you're playing the kids, even if you don't think you're going to win the ball, challenge for it, because at least put the other guy off. You shouldn't just kind of let it go past him. I mean, it was a great cross. I mean, it was begging just somebody to touch it, but I mean, we'd nobody attack it, So that's two wee little things.
Yeah, so for me, I'm looking at it. I'll just quickly bring up here. McLaughlin's saying 3-0. Heavy Vibes are saying 2-2 or 5-0 for the game. and that's a fair assessment. Smell the glove saying 4-1. Dermot saying 4-0. For me, I'm saying we'll probably win 2-1 or 3-1. That's about it. They'll get a goal because John Beaton's in the middle. But yeah, that's how I see it playing out. I think there's going to be an interesting one.
The 2-2 or 5-0 actually isn't is a good way to look at it, because it would not be surprised if either of those results happened.
I wouldn't be shocked with either of that. If I was to come Saturday night just before midnight looking at going, it was a 2-2, I'd be like, Heavy Vibes was right. But if we win 5-0, I'd be like, Heavy Vibes was right. Perfect. I could see both of them happening. So there's no big issue with that. So how we wrap up our pods on Celtic Down Under is we just have a final thought. It can be about absolutely anything. No justification needed, no explanation, just whatever you want to say to finish the pod. So my final thought, Smell the Glove just stole it from me. So good luck to Bilbao tonight.
Well, I actually watched Bilbao against Villarreal on Monday. Now, I won't admit it's the only time I've seen them, and they didn't look in, they were good, but they didn't look in sensational. I mean, and bearing Rangers' recent performances in Europe, based on what I saw on Monday, I wouldn't be surprised if Rangers had a good result against them. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Mike, you got a final thought?
Can I just go back to Europa League just before I close up, because P. McLaughlin, I think he misunderstood what I was saying about the Europa League. He said, if we're in Europa League, it means we've not won the league. I wasn't meaning that. I mean, we win the league this season, but we don't qualify for Europe Champions League. We get into the Europa League next season and win that. I don't mean we don't win the league this season. I mean that you can win the Europa League, gets you straight into the Champions League. So winning the Scottish League doesn't get you straight into the Champions League. Winning the Europa League does get you into the Champions League. I wasn't meaning don't win the league after that. So. And one other final thing, where you win the game doesn't matter. In the original 9 in a row, I saw every game Celtic played 9 in a row. In all those 9 years, they never won the game, never won the league at Celtic Park. Never. They had a home game once, but because of developments, the game was played at Hampden. So there you are. So you don't need to be at the game to win the league.
Cool. Ian, you got a final thought?
I think I'm just going to reiterate, I suppose, my wish that Brendan starts to look at changing formations, going a bit more, 2 up top would be a lovely antidote to some of the shitty football we've been seeing in recent weeks.
Mike, you got anything you want to add?
Well, if that does come to pass, Ian, I'll get you a couple of pints, but because I'm quite sure it won't.
No, I agree. I don't think it will, but and Brendan we trust. I love the guy, but I just, as I say, it's why not just try to shut us up.
Yeah, well, I'm just hoping that because by our standards, by New Zealand standards, the game on Saturday is not a bad time. It's 11:30 on a Saturday night. Yeah. So I'm just hoping to God that I can get the downside of it, as I found out on Sunday, was the game kicked off at 11 o'clock our time, but it was still about 3 o'clock before I got to bed because I just could not get settled down after what I'd seen. So please God, give me a good night's sleep on Monday and Sunday morning.
Yep. 100%. All right, guys. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate it. Hail. And we'll be back next week.
All right. Slant.
Cheers, guys.